Now, in just a moment, I'm going to tie a nice little Puget Sound Sand Lance fly. Before I do that, I'd like to make a quick announcement. YouTube just notified me that I've reached 1,000 subscribers, which I'm dead chuffed about. So I would like to say a sincere thank you to all my subscribers and to everyone that's been kind enough to leave a comment on my videos. Thank you all so much for watching. Now, to celebrate and as a means of showing my appreciation, I want to give away a box of flies that I've tied. Now, these are tied for sea run cutthroat, but they'll also catch resident coho salmon. And I think it would appeal to someone who doesn't tie their own flies, or to a person that has just started tying but doesn't really have very many materials yet, or in fact to a freshwater angler who fancies trying the salt for the first time. You could definitely take your 5-weight trout rod down to the beach, and assuming there are fish there, this box of flies will catch. I guarantee it. So let's open up the box and see what's in there. So there are 15 different patterns, 3 of each, for a total of 45 flies. So first up are some rolled muddlers. These are basically a small sculpin imitation, very popular in Vancouver Island in British Columbia, which is where they were from. Next up is the Delia's conehead squid, actually a slight variant of it, with a hen hackle collar. Over the years, this has been my second most productive fly, especially in the fall and winter, but works year-round. Then we have the ghost bugger. These are tied according to the recipe from the guys in the Gig Harbor Fly Shop, and apparently this is one of their hottest patterns for sea runs and salmon in the South Sound. Moving along, we've got some small clouser minnows in chartreuse over white. I don't have to say much about these. I think they're simply one of the most effective forage fish imitations ever created. Next is Bob Trigg's Chum Baby. These are a great choice in the spring during the out-migration of chum fry. And these ones are squill pins. This is my own pattern, designed using pine squirrel, kind of a sculpin-like form, being a great producer. Down in the bottom, we've got Les Johnson's Beach Fly. This is a beautiful combination of white and orange, tied with an Arctic fox wing. Then we've got the Squimp. I've caught more fish on this than any other pattern. It works all year round, stripped fast or slow, and also very good for resident coho, as good as any fly I know. And these are the chum fry tied according to Josh from Spawn Fly Fish in Ilwaco, and this has been absolutely my favorite fly this spring and summer. In the next compartment, we've got, this is the Marmot Bay Squid. It's an old pattern that I found in a book about Alaskan flies. Works very well fished with a slow, irregular retrieve, and it'll catch salmon too. Next up, the remaining flies are all actually topwater patterns. First, we've got my own tiger squid. This is a tube fly, and it produces very aggressive strikes from sea runs. And they'll often hit this fly 3 or 4 times before they finally nail it. These are what I've called SRC sliders, although they're sold commercially as Puget Sound sliders. In any case, it's an awesome topwater fly for salmon and cutties. These ones here are mini gurglers in that great orange and white combination again. These will cause a nice little commotion in the water. Then we've got the most celebrated of all the SRC topwater patterns. These are Leyland Milwaukee's beach poppers. Now, I've tied these ones on tubes instead of fitting them with the usual trailer hooks. Both styles work great, but the tubes give them more of a more buoyancy, and they ride the water a little bit flatter. And finally, we've got J. Paulson's Titanic. Depending on how hard you strip these, they'll either behave like a slider or more like a popper. And this is another fly which will provoke absolutely massive strikes. So how this will work is I'll leave comments on the video open for 5 days. During that period, if you'd like the Flybox, just put a comment on the video to the effect that, yes, I would like the Flybox. And at the end of the 5 days, I'll assign a number sequentially to all the comments. And then I will pick one of those numbers randomly. And then I'll reply to the comment of the winning person, let them know they've won, and I will give them an email that I've created for the channel. So all you have to do if you're the winner is send to that email your mailing address, and I'll have the flies sent right out to you. Now, if nobody wants the flies, that's not a problem. I'll just simply fish them myself. But I will commit, if I get 1,500 subscribers, I'll give away a box of salmon flies. So I can't say fairer than that. Okay, and with that, it's on to tying. I'm going to tie a simple sand lance pattern for coho salmon. There are lots of similar patterns out there, but the one I'm doing is based around a fly that's featured in this wonderful book, Fly Fishing for Pacific Salmon 2, which is a relatively recent expanded version of a 1985 book by Les Johnson and Bruce Ferguson. And here it is, the Puget Sound Sand Lance, originated by Richard Embry. I've made a few changes to the recipe, but this is going to be quite similar to the original. Now, the juvenile sand lance that salmon are going to be feeding on in the nearshore waters are very slender and typically around 3 to 4 inches long, as you can see in this picture, which was taken by the US Geological Survey of a fish from Bainbridge Island. You can see that the sides have a definite pinkish sheen, and this is a feature that I've highlighted in my version of the pattern. The juvenile fish start to appear in numbers in about June, and they're going to be present all through the period when coho are in migrating. This is footage I shot at Point No Point of a typical school of sand lance in July. These schools can be just enormous. This particular one took 3.5 minutes to completely swim by me. And you can see the typical snake-like swimming motion. Now, on occasion, salmon will herd these fish really close to the water's edge, and then they'll slash through them and pick off the stunned and injured individuals. I've watched this happen several times. Sometimes you'll see dozens of dead sand lance lying on the gravel where they've just beached themselves in an effort to escape the carnage. And when this type of action's going on, you'd be very well advised to have a sand lance imitation in your fly box. You could tie this on any strong wire standard saltwater hook. I've got a Daiichi 2546 in size 4. I think the original fly used the Mustad 34007, so that would also work. And when I've got it in my vise, I'm going to debarb it. So my thread is Danville's fine monofilament. I'll start this just behind the eye and continue until level with the barb. So the undertail is made from white bucktail, and I don't need very much of this. There we go. Just clean that out a bit. So I've got, I'd say, about 25 hairs. I'm going to measure twice the length of the hook and then tie it in along the top of the shank. So I'll cut that off at an angle. and just tidy it up a bit as I return my thread. I'm going to make those final wraps a little bit softer just so that I don't flare out the bucktail. My next material is Supreme hair. The recipe calls for translucent, which I think is just white. And the change I've made is to add in some of this pink rippleized fiber to mimic the pink iridescence of the sand lance. I'm going to use about the same volume of Supreme hair as I did the bucktail. It's going to be about that much. And I'm going to pull out some of the ends so as to form a taper. And a little scissor trimming will help with that. So for now, I'm going to just lay it down on my desk. Now I'm only going to blend in a tiny amount of the pink fiber. Just about that much. I'm going to roll and stack it into the super hair with my fingers. So it comes out like that. Then I'll tie it on top of the bucktail. Trim the butt ends at an angle. And then return my thread again to the base of the tail. Just get rid of any stragglers. Those off. So the final component of the tail is peacock angel hair, or devil hair I think it should be called. Bloody stuff gets everywhere. So I'm going to take a really sparse bunch. Just get rid of any loose bits. And lay that on top. Now, it doesn't matter really if this doesn't tie in perfectly, as we'll be covering everything up. But I'm going to try and keep most of it on the top. So now I can trim that and just tidy up any bits that are going to get in the way. More tidying up. So I'll trim that at an angle and just a tad longer than the Supreme hair. Now I'll return my thread back to the eye. Now I'm going to cover the body of the fly with flat pearl diamond braid. So attach the braid right behind the hook eye and then bind it down as far as the tail and return the thread. Now I can wrap that braid in overlapping turns. Now trap and tie off the braid. Wrap back a few turns just to secure it neatly and trim away the excess. Now at this point I can whip finish. And remove the thread. In the original recipe, gill markings were drawn on with a fine red Sharpie, but I prefer to do this with some red thread. So I've got some red uni in 8/0. Now I'm aiming to attach this about a third of the way along the body, just about there. That's on. Now I can whip finish again and remove my red thread. Now I can take a black Sharpie and color the top of the body. And you'll find, just like magic, that this is going to turn iridescent, and it's really going to match that angel hair very well. See? Now I'm going to add some 1/8 inch flat stick-on eyes. These are glow-in-the-dark ones. I found it increasingly hard to source these smaller adhesive eyes, but the old Florida fly shop has them, so I just bought a ton of them. Just need to tighten up the vise here. And those eyes are going to go on just in front of the gill marking. Is that one on? I'm happy with that. So in the original recipe, the body's finished with a coat of epoxy, but I'm going to use thin UV resin from Loon. And make sure I get a little bit over the eyes. Just use my bodkin to spread that around evenly. So once that's cured, I'm just going to apply a final top coat of Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails. And that's it, the Puget Sound Sand Lance. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you the next time.